Yeah, welcome to another episode of Artco. Or Artco? No, it's not Artco. It's
Arch
Art.
Place.
What? I forgot where I was. Uh, and we got a great show today with Lloyd Mendenhall. It's going to be an open format show where we're just going to talk about hot topics that happened in the past week. I was just out of town down in Austin, Texas for Spin Up. In case you don't know, it is a drone event where droners from all over the country meet, and a lot of YouTubers are there as well. So we get to meet a lot of really neat people, and there were a lot of great prizes there. And I won one of the big prizes. I got the RoboMaster S1. uh, that's going to be fun to play around with. So
Yeah.
let's get together and let's get the show going. And welcome, Lloyd.
Well, thank you, Art, and yeah, I'm glad to be here, and congratulations on winning that big prize. I knew about it just even before you had posted it. I'd already gotten messages that you'd won it. Mel had
Great.
texted me, and Steve had texted. Yeah, it was like it's kind of like being there. I got to keep up on what was going on, and so yeah, congratulations again on winning the big prize or one of the big prizes. So
Thank you. Thank you. So today, well, one of the things I heard earlier this week is Trump had a big meeting, and some of the Democrat leaders got all into a fit and walked out. And a couple hours later, hey, there's a ceasefire in Turkey and Syria. So
yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, well, I'd actually read somebody put up that once the three leading Democrats left the room, they had a very successful meeting.
Well, yeah.
That's that's what they that's what and it wasn't Trump tweeted it. It was somebody else, another member of the cabinet or somebody that was in the meeting. They said, "Yeah, it was a great success once the three complaining
Yeah,
Democrats left."
after they, screamed and shouted,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they left, and well, look at there are a bunch of microphones standing right outside the White House for
yeah,
the two Democrats, Pelosi and Schumer, to
yeah,
give
yeah.
their little speech and show their outrage.
The thing is they could actually accomplish something if they actually did something, but they don't work. They want to run around complaining about impeachment. They're like a really bad broken record.
Mm,
Uh,
that's right.
if anybody's obstructing anything, they're obstructing the work of the government.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah,
that's
because
right. The
because they
only
have
thing
nothing to offer.
Yeah, that's true, and the only thing Trump did was obstruct their, uh, attempt to, uh, have a coup, try to,
Yeah,
get him out of office.
yeah. I
Mhm,
I you know here's the thing. I wished there was a way that they could be brought up on treason charges, but that would be considered for political gain, which is what they're accusing Trump of, you know,
mhm,
using his influence with a foreign government for political gain or against a political opponent. And that's not the case. Part of his deal was when he came in is to drain the swamp, and that includes getting rid of these ridiculous amounts of money we're sending to foreign countries uh, that aren't accomplishing anything. And that money is being spent on the former vice president's son, and
right.
yet he has zero qualifications. He doesn't speak Ukrainian, Russian. He doesn't know anything about the oil business,
Right.
and he only got this job, and he had even admitted it on camera that if his name wasn't Biden, he probably wouldn't have gotten the job.
And, he got thrown out of the Navy for drug use.
Oh, really? Now, see, I hadn't picked up that part.
Mm.
Because when we do stuff like that, like you and I do, and we see all these things coming, sometimes I just get so overloaded with stuff. I can't keep up with it all, you know, and that's where you've got me beat, because you are definitely a researcher and know your stuff a lot
Mhm.
better than I do.
Yep, yep. Yeah, he was, I guess right after college, he went into Navy and had, no qualifications to get in the Navy other than his dad was vice president. Gets in, has a really bad cocaine habit,
Wow.
and they threw him out of the Navy.
Well, yeah, that happens. I was just sitting there looking. Oh, there we
Right.
are. I forgot to bring up the chat so I can see what everybody's saying.
Yeah,
Whoops.
I
Well,
gotta go do that too.
yeah. Oh, there's Chris Hope is in the house. Hello,
Wonderful.
nephew. All right. Let me bring up the pop out chat so I can keep up with it better. So, I get distracted easily, right? Art.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so I've got something here that whenever I get distracted and I realize it, I'm going to
Right?
do this.
Yeah.
My squirrel moment. Look in the corner there. Oh, you can't see it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh
But
yeah. There. Oh, that's cute. I like
yeah, that's my squirrel moment.
that.
Got to talking to my friend Grant Smith last night, and he said, and I did. I've been like that all weekend.
Yeah, sometimes I get that way too, where I'll be, thinking about something and something pops into my head and I go, zip, there we go.
Yep, yep, that's it. All right, where is this? You
Right.
know what? I'm still on here. Oh, there it is over there. I was trying to find the StreamYard link. I I, I had too many things open. Again, squirrel.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, but
Now, was it you that told me that we only had like 26 troops in Syria in the first place, and the Democrats were all, you know, uh,
yeah, no, I don't. I didn't tell you that because I hadn't seen. I knew we'd done a drawdown, you know, after the ISIS was eliminated from there, or enough to where we could pull out. So yeah, and for our troops to get stuck between Turkey and the Kurds, we should be backing the Kurds because, uh,
yeah,
but there was no point for Turkey's been wanting to do this for a long time. They wanted to, because they've got their own problems with their Kurds in
yeah,
Turkey, and so they've just been looking for an excuse to attack down there,
yeah,
and
mm,
you know,
yeah, and rather have than having our troops in harm's way,
right?
get 'em out of there. Now it's a no win situation for Trump because if he would left them there and they got killed, the Democrats would have been up in arms about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's it. They would have uh, if troops had gotten killed down there, and they would have said, "Well, he's not, he just escalated a war to somewhere else." And it's like,
Mhm,
Drone
mhm.
Life RC says we can start the show now. Uh,
Oh, okay.
oh, Chris Hope said he'd be right back. So,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was a no win situation. He's either going to be attacked for uh, his stance on, either escalating the war or not supporting it properly. Yeah, there's just no way,
yeah, mhm,
So
yep, that's true.
and
And so did you see who, AOC is supporting for president?
isn't it Bernie?
Yep.
Yeah, 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 really?
Yeah,
Oh, that was
go
a big
figure.
surprise. Another socialist. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
So
don't know if old Bernie's going to make it or not. His
no, yeah, he's dropping in the polls. And
polls. Yeah.
oh, so did you hear anything about the last debate?
I heard a lot, but it was one of those things that it didn't. I I did see somebody wrote a headline. Uh, the winner of this last debate was Trump.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and Elizabeth Warren wants to tax 401ks.
Right.
Yeah.
There was one of them that okay, Drone Life RC says there's only 28 soldiers there. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. We discussed that just a little earlier,
Okay.
and yeah. So yeah, it's uh oh, I may have to go in there and help her a
All
minute.
right.
But uh, okay, she's settling down. But yeah,
Okay.
uh, the antibiotics are helping.
Oh, that's great.
So
Mhm.
she's actually doing. But today's one of them days she's having troubles breathing. So, uh,
Right.
but it just goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we were
squirrel,
talking about the debate.
the debate. Yeah,
Oh, yep, there we
squirrel.
go.
Yeah. Squirrel. Okay. Yeah, I don't. Well, I think a lot of it is I've been worried about Judy now for a couple of
Yeah.
weeks, and then this other thing. Yep, squirrel.
Mhm.
That's the way my brain's been all weekend.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, the debate. Elizabeth Warren. One of them was caught on mic. Like coming back from the commercial break, and they said they've been asking them about, I think, the taxes. Probably Elizabeth Warren. She goes, I can't say that here, you know. And I think it had to do with she was going to have to say how, because isn't she the one or was it one of the others they kept asking? So how are you going to pay for this? So how, what's the cost? How are you going to? And uh, uh, oh, Love My Drones is on. Welcome, but yeah, and they were caught saying I can't say that,
Oh boy.
but yeah. I I purposely didn't watch that debate because
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't need my blood pressure to go up. I leave that to other people who do that professionally. And then,
yeah, let the professionals deal with
yeah,
it, and we'll just sit back and talk about.
right.
I mean,
Mhm.
we can discuss it, but the point is, why watch it? Because you're going to have everybody from Hannity to Limbaugh and anybody in between,
Right.
and of course, then you got all uh, uh, the Crap News Network and PMSNBC and all
Yeah.
of those other jokers that
Yeah.
are going to have their. Yeah, Love My Drone says those that hate him will find any reason to do it, and that's true.
Hmm.
He said he'd break his TV. Yeah, I'm. I just I hate to say it, but thank God for YouTube because there's usually a show on whenever they're having these debates that I want to. I'd rather watch. Uh,
That's true.
Actually, I think Ken Heron's show was on. Was that Thursday night they had the debate?
Was, I think it was the debate was on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Hmm. And then the following morning, I was making my way to Austin, Texas, and uh, Ken was on his way to Texas, and he drove down there.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah,
left after the show. He was getting ready to leave after the show or early the next morning.
yeah,
I can't
right
remember.
after the show, they
Yeah,
left.
after the show. Yeah, well, they're yeah, I saw that they're not going to have it at his. Be honest with you, I wouldn't want my resort ruined by a bunch of some of those people that are going to be there anyway. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
but
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's it. he has, I don't know how, uh, I don't have any idea how that actually plays out because it's his resort. But
Right,
he stepped away from because by rights, everything's been put in holding, so any profits that come from that
right,
wouldn't go to him anyways.
right.
You know, and it's they're just looking for an excuse to dislike him.
Mhm.
And he just took one away. So okay, you know,
Yep.
let somebody else put up with it for a while.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Which I think is a good move on his part.
Yeah. And I noticed that when Beto O'Rourke wasn't in the debate because he didn't make the cut.
Oh, he didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I wondered about that.
Mhm.
And what was it I saw about him the other day? It was oh he which one of the which maybe it was in the previous debate when he was talking about taking guns and all this stuff
Yeah.
and
He's
yeah,
gonna. Yep.
and one of
Yeah,
the
we're
other
coming for your AR-15s and your AK-47.
yeah, and one of the other guys who is a vet said, "Don't talk to me about honor," and
Mm,
kind of gave him a little bit of a took it took him out behind the barn for a few minutes,
right. Mm,
you know,
mhm.
and that's the problem with a lot of these people is well, you can't say because Elizabeth Warren's as old as we are, uh,
Yeah.
you know, but uh, this is what is so different than what we've got this young millennial slash generation Z or whoever these young
Yeah.
people 20-year-olds are that are out doing all this crap
Mm,
and they're involved in politics, but they're picking somebody who is what's she in her 60s or 70s,
yeah, I think yeah.
you know, and that's who they seem to be gravitating towards.
Mhm.
But I think back in 1968, 67, 68, when Bobby Kennedy was running,
Right.
he he energized a whole generation, which unfortunately now we're having to put up with him like Elizabeth Warren, but he energized a whole generation of people to get behind him. And
Mhm.
he was still relatively young
Yeah. Mhm.
at that time. Of
Yeah.
course, he didn't, he was assassinated, which was, I think, was a tragedy in itself. I never
Yeah.
understood that, but uh, that's for another channel.
Yeah.
Maybe Ghost Mafia sees that. You need to discuss that on your channel. John and Bobby Kennedy. Those are the two you need to talk about.
Yeah.
But uh, uh, but they're gravitating towards this generation is gravitating 67. Okay, thank you. Uh,
Mhm.
but they're gravitating towards these older people, whereas back when we were in our 20s, and younger, uh, we would look towards somebody like Bobby Kennedy because he
Yeah,
was
he's
like
one of us.
just the next one up. He wasn't as old as our parents,
Right.
but he was young enough to still be cool. And of
Mm,
course,
yeah.
that ended up tragically. But
Mhm.
ever since then, we seem to this generation here is picking older and older people. I mean, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
it makes no sense.
they're going after they're going after. They are supporting the people that are the most furthest to the left that are
Yeah, yeah.
socialists. And sad thing is our schools are teaching
Oh,
that socialism is cool. Look at the Scandinavian countries, but what they don't realize is those countries walked away from socialism years ago, and they're still a capitalist country. It's
yeah,
that their taxes are really high.
yeah.
That's because their pension program is, on the verge of collapsing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, Carlos, welcome to the show. I want to say hi to Well, Carlos, love my drones. Who's this grumpy blogger guy?
A
Love
little
my
fart that keeps
drones.
following you.
Oh, and Drone Life RC and Chris Hope.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, look at Venezuela. They're a mess. And
yeah.
oh, and speaking of Venezuela, did you know they're on the Human Rights Committee in the UN? I mean,
Well,
talk about a
the you,
well, an entity that was a great idea right after World War II to bring, to help the countries that were been devastated by war and to put back the pieces and it was doing really good up until about the 70s, and that's when it started making this, you know,
yeah,
spiral down the porcelain. Uh,
right, yeah, and it was never. I mean, it it's turned into the League of Nations. It's about as worthless as the original,
yeah,
the League of Nations. But
it's
love
all
my,
run by socialists,
yeah,
socialists and
yeah,
Marxists, and they what they're trying to do is create what's called the New World Order, to where
yeah,
it's one government, and instead of following our Constitution, what they're going to do is they're going to follow socialist
yeah,
Constitution.
yeah, and I mean the New World Order has been around since the 70s. I first
Yeah,
heard I started reading books about it and seeing books about it, and just it's
right.
been going on since the 70s.
Mhm.
And you know, I have said this all along. All of this is a yeah, one world government. This is all payback for what Senator McCarthy did to the Hollywood people in the 50s,
Mhm.
and they've been wanting to get back at everybody's since then. But the thing is, oh, okay. All right. That was my son. He's was going to come over today and uh, see his mom. So let
Okay.
me answer that real quick. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Let me answer that because
Yeah.
that's one I need to
Go
answer.
ahead.
So
We'll talk amongst ourselves here. Steve Carpenter is in the house. All right. Wait. How about great? It's great to have you. And yeah, so now we're talking about the UN and how the UN has just they're basically a useless
well,
organization that's
yeah,
anti-American. Just because the United States has one of the greatest economies and the highest standard of living in the world. I mean, Canada's got a really good standard of living as well because they're pretty much a capitalist country. But
right,
yeah, I just saw a thing on I think it was Facebook today. It was from Prager University about the Scandinavian countries and how people are mis stating that they're socialist countries, when in fact they're not. They delved into socialism back in the 70s and early 80s, and then when things started to fall apart, uh, they decided, you know what, we're not going to raise enough revenues to cover all these projects. So we're going to go back to the capitalist system, and we'll have a high enough tax rate to where we can at least cover some of the important entitlement program,
right, yeah.
like Social
I
Security.
I saw on Facebook, and oh, Steve, tell Paul I said hi, and uh, so I guess he's still down there. He must be taking a late flight out or leaving tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I saw a thing today talking about taxes and stuff. This kid, his dad, he and his dad were playing Monopoly,
Right.
and his dad comes in filming on video, and the kid's about 9 or so, and he starts tearing up and puckering up. And he says, "What's the matter?" He says, "Where's your money?" He goes, "Taxes." He goes, "What?" He says, "It's all gone." Says he says, "But this is a fun game." This he says, "No, it's not. Taxes. They it took all my money." And this kid was really upset uh,
Mhm.
because all the taxes that land, Park Place and all that.
Right.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
had to pay taxes on all
Yep.
that. And he was bankrupt, and he was really ticked off. And I said, "There's a future conservative right there."
Yep. That's right. Mhm. Yeah, and
Oh, you're
Carlos
flying.
said,
Steve says you're flying out tomorrow. All right, Steve. Well, tell him I said hi.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it was great meeting, Paul Drone Bum. It was great meeting him. And, well, we'll talk about that a little later, so
Right, right. Yeah.
let's don't let that little squirrel run in front of us.
Well, I wanted to answer Steve, and I'd answered him, but
Yeah,
yeah, the squirrel. Uh,
yeah,
oh, taxes. I was talking about the kid
yeah,
with
Ted.
taxes, and we were talking about the UN. It is really first off, we're supplying all that stuff, all their
Yeah.
nice places, all their the embassies.
Mhm.
Here's a plan. First off, let's move the UN out of the United States.
Right. Mm.
Let's move it onto a uh, hey, I'm sure we've got some islands or something that's still in the American
I think
territories.
it should be moved to The Hague.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, that it
Mhm.
should go to the Hague, which is where they deal with the war crimes and everything else,
Yeah.
And so let's move it to the Hague. And I think that any embassies that are on our
Well,
inside, on our soil, I think they should either have to pay a high amount of rent,
right.
or they should have to buy the property. If they want $1 trillion mansion, fine, build it yourself, but we're
Yep.
not paying a
Right.
dime to
Mhm.
help with your embassy. And uh, because I'm pretty sure that Saudi Arabia doesn't, or Iraq or any of them pay us money for, we have to supply everything for
Right.
our embassies, but yet when they come here, we want to make sure the ambassadors live comfortable. Screw the
Uh-huh.
ambassadors, let them pay their own way,
Mhm.
you know. And I think once we started doing some of this, I think we would probably, you know, uh, I think we would have a lot more control of things. And the other thing is if they build, because it's sovereign territory,
Yeah.
it's on our property,
Mhm.
it's not sovereign. You
Yeah.
follow the same rules that anybody else does,
Yep.
this diplomatic immunity crap that they get
Yeah.
by with all this stuff. And the spy systems are not allowed to, we should be able to monitor that so that we know what they're listening to, because they
Uh-huh.
come to our country and then spy on us. And this is all part of the UN. This is all part of
Yep.
that whole
Mhm.
giant entity. And
Mhm.
it's a Charlie Foxtrot, to put it
Yeah.
bluntly, you know.
Well, I'm sure we have our spy network in other countries. Yeah, it's not
We do. In the 70s, and this is something that is readily available online.
right.
In the 70s and in the 60s, we had listening post.
Yep.
Okay. They were they were, but everybody knew that's what they were doing, and we don't have to have those manned listening posts anymore. We
Right.
have the technology with our satellite systems and all that. We
Mhm.
can spy without ever having set foot on their soil.
That's
You know,
right.
it's
Mhm.
available. We have it. We know they're doing it. The Russians are doing it,
Mhm.
and they just don't have the money that we do right now. Well, they're getting it now because they've Russian oil reserves have helped pay for a lot of that. And
Right.
but you know, That's the thing. We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to have these manned listening posts during the Cold War. Yeah, and that's the
Hmm.
reason they were there, was to protect. We had people in Iran, listening posts set up in Iran that were uh, uh, peopled by American soldiers. They
Yeah,
were populated by the American soldiers, and they took care of that. They were signed to. I had a cousin who was actually at one of those listening posts,
right.
and he's since passed away. But uh, and I had spent a little bit of time in that part of the world too. But now we don't need to do that. We have the technology. I mean, it's just that simple. And there's no point of us having to pay and for us to having to pay to have these other countries on our soil using listening devices inside of our country. Uh,
Hmm.
if they want to spy on us, do it like we do. Get a satellite
Hmm.
or infiltrate. There's nothing wrong with the spy game as long as it's being done the right way. But this thing of these ambassadors are coming here, they're given privileges, they're allowed to do things, and
Right.
there are American spies out there, and but they're doing what spies do. They come in here undercover. These these embassies, that's the problem. They're spying out of the embassies too, and that's
Yep.
supposed to be they're supposed to be here because of an allegiance or diplomatic situations,
Right.
and I don't think espionage is part of should be part of the diplomatic package. you
Right.
know
Hmm.
and
Yep.
that's just my opinion. And there
Uh-huh.
again, that's where the UN has allowed this kind of, that's where they're such a worthless entity. I say, you know let's don't just build the wall there, let's build the wall uh on Canada too.
Yeah.
Let's build a wall on the let's build a wall just east of California and just west of New York.
Uh-huh. Well, hey, Mitch is in the house, so welcome, welcome, Mitch. Yep. Now, this whole spine thing, it's been a pretty old game that's been going on for centuries. In
Yeah,
the United
yeah,
States, we sort of got into it pretty late because World War I, we did not have an intelligence organization uh, because we were mostly in isolation in this country,
right,
and
right,
we didn't want to worry about, let's let the Europeans deal with their thing, and same with Asia, and we'll protect our hemisphere.
right, right,
Uh, so when World War II came along, we became one of the superpowers out of that.
right.
And we decided, now we've got a new threat, and it's called communism.
Yeah,
And we needed an organization that would gather intelligence and keep an eye on communist activities. And that's where the CIA came in.
right,
It was spawned out of the OSS.
right. Yeah, yeah,
And and it was an important part of our government because without it, who knows what kind of baloney would be going on, and we didn't know about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, you're right. We actually did have we've had spies since the beginning of our country,
Right.
but as a central organization and a part of our company hierarchy. No, spies were always an extension of the military.
Right.
Washington spies. They did that whole mini series on Washington spies.
Mhm.
And uh, we had spies in the you know the Civil War. North and South both had spies.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can just go through history, and we've had them, but they were always an extension of, and this is an oxymoron, guys, I know it, but they were an extension of military intelligence,
Yeah. Mhm.
which I always
Mhm.
just said was an oxymoron.
Right.
Uh,
And
yeah.
the FBI was spawned out of during Prohibition because gangs started to rise, and they were, threatening a lot of our culture, especially in the big cities,
Right.
because you know the police were helpless because these people had uh, gang members. I mean, they had gang members within the police department.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They had, they just like. And let me speak to something real here from Carlos. He says now Google spies for the government. Actually, Google spies for, if they do it for anybody, it's for the liberal side of the government,
yeah, mm,
because I guarantee you Google is anti-Trump.
yeah, mm,
Google and YouTube and all that. So yeah, but they probably spy for the government, but it's, I guarantee you, it's for the deep state, not for
right,
the, it's for the swamp, not for the swamp drainers. You know.
right. And uh, they were also complicit in, you know, the fake poll numbers during
Yeah,
the last
yeah,
election,
yeah,
and
yeah,
saying, "Oh, Hillary's going to win. It's going to be a blowout." And then when Trump came along, and it's like, "Oh my God, how did this happen? This guy won."
yeah.
Now,
I
okay, let's get back to spies.
Yeah,
So then 9/11 happened. And how that happened was, well, you had two entities that couldn't communicate with each other. You had one that was basically external intelligent gathering,
right.
and the other one was internal. And they couldn't talk to each other, and that was due to because Bill Clinton signed an order saying, "Hey, these two entities could not talk to each other
Yeah,
because the CIA, they knew about the hijackers, but they couldn't talk to the FBI.
right, right.
The FBI couldn't
Well,
give information to the CIA about it."
and his thoughts were, and well, I don't know what his thoughts were. I think most of his thoughts were below the belt, anyways. But that's a different story altogether.
Right.
Uh, but I think the idea is he didn't want uh, the Central Intelligence Agency being involved in domestic matters, and he was trying to keep it separate. But unfortunately, there has to be an exchange of information because we have spies that are part of the domestic situation.
Mhm.
I think the best example of how it works is when you have, in England, you have the MI5, MI6. MI5 is domestic,
Oh,
MI6 is their version of CIA.
I
MI5 is like the FBI. MI6, which is who Bond, James
uh,
Bond, worked
uh,
for. And
I see.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Mhm.
there's actually a TV series called, well, it's called MI5 here. Over there, it was called Spooks. And
Oh, okay.
a lot of the big stars have played on that, but it was, yeah, it was MI5 is their FBI. It takes
Right.
care of, but they communicate because, but all of these, and this has been the thing, this has been a problem with all of our interagencies interaction is they all want to take credit for the find, the great, you know,
Yeah.
and that's, even now they still don't work well together.
Right. Mhm. And in the former Soviet Union, they had the KGB, but they were, you know, an all-purpose gathering intelligence gathering because they were spying on their own people because they wanted to make sure that they didn't have any domestic terrorists
Right.
or people trying to overthrow the communist government.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
now it has changed. It's called the FSB, and it's still basically
It's
the
still the
KGB,
KGB.
the
Yeah.
different initials.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Putin, that's
Yeah.
where he started. Was right. He came right out of the KGB.
And in Iran during the Shah administration, their dynasty, that was called the Savak. They were the internal police,
Yep. Actually
and
knew some of them.
a lot of people were just saying, "Oh, they're a bad organization," and blah blah blah. Eventually, I'm going to do a video and kind of give a different perspective on the Shah of Iran and some of these other people who have been portrayed as evil people, and
Yeah.
you
I
gotta kind of give it in the context. Okay, what was happening at that time, and what what
that
were they trying to do to uh, secure their country? Like
Yeah.
Ferdinand Marcos during his uh, reign, uh, because he was dealing with communists that were
Yeah.
trying to overthrow his government, and he also had Muslim extremists as
Yes.
well.
And
So
that's what I find is so striking is when you and I will talk one of these days before you do that video that you're talking about with
right,
Iran. You and I'll talk a little bit about some things and that I won't talk about on camera, but let's just say uh, what they don't under and what I find, and it's a bit of an irony, is the fact that if you look at all these different countries, the ones that have fallen, and now the Muslim extremists have basically taking over.
right,
You got a big problem in the Philippines. You got a big problem in Yemen. You got all these different countries around there that have this. The government at the time was trying to fight communism, and they, well, they were all a lot of them were basically a Muslim anyways,
right,
so they didn't see it as a threat. But that allowed them. I just find the irony that communism is an atheist organization in
right.
general, okay,
Mhm.
and yet they are always hand in hand. Not always, but in these Middle Eastern countries, they're hand in hand with the Muslim extremist,
Right.
which Muslim Islam is supposed to be it's a religion, but yet,
It's a political
yeah,
organization
it's actually
as
a
well.
theocracy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, these are it's a theocratic government when they're run by the imams and the
Mhm.
ayatollahs and all of
Yeah.
that, you know.
Mhm.
But Islam itself, if you go back to the tenets, well, I can't say that there's any part of it that is really. I'm sure there's parts of it that are good, and there's those that, like any religion, people practice it in different ways. There's a lot of people that
Mhm.
are real hardcore Catholics,
Right.
and then there's those that are they just don't they can't agree with everything that the church says, and
Right.
so you know they're what they call smorgasbord Catholics.
Mhm.
They take the good stuff, and the other stuff they just
Right.
and the same
Mhm.
with it doesn't matter if you're Muslims, if you're Hindi, if you're any of these. There's always going to be somebody who's going to grab the bad side of that and use it, and
Right.
that's where communism gets in because they realize that a lot of these far extreme groups are about as godless as they are.
Right. Mhm.
It's just an opinion, guys. Don't shoot the messenger here. Uh,
Well,
well,
I want to do a thing about the Shah of Iran and the government that replaced him and how that government fell, and that's a whole nother show. And then we could talk about the Muslim Brotherhood, which spawned out of after World War I.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, when Ataturk formed the nation of Turkey
Right.
and the Ottoman Empire was broken up,
Yeah. Yeah.
he wanted a secular country, and he wanted to be more modern, more westernized, and they had a very thriving economy for a long, long time. And now the Muslim extremists have finally taken hold of the government there. And boy, and we could talk about how the Russians are actually repeating their mistake from World War II by siding with people that are probably going to end up fighting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
look at Afghanistan and that mess it caused them, and
Yep.
those were from the same group of people they're backing in Syria,
Hmm.
or
Yep.
same type. You know,
Well, and if the Shah of Iran hadn't fallen, I don't think the Soviets would have invaded Afghanistan.
no, our biggest mistake, and like I said, you and I will have a conversation off camera one day
Okay.
about this, but because a lot of what you're talking about, I have some firsthand knowledge,
Okay.
firsthand experience with,
Mhm.
but
Right.
where we made our mistake was, and this was Jimmy Carter. There again, Democrats. You know,
Hmm.
Jimmy Carter was a great. He's a great ex-president. As long as he doesn't speak publicly, we're
Yeah.
good. But he goes out and does a lot of things. But he was crap for a president. I served under him. You
Yeah.
know, he was still my commander in chief, and I respected him. But as commander in chief, and that's the difference. That's the difference between my time period and when we served. We did not agree with, a lot of us didn't agree with him, and
Hmm.
we voted against him, but we didn't go out and we didn't protest, we didn't do all of this stuff.
Right.
Those of us that were truly uh I was a volunteer. I would have been a draftee anyways, but I
Yeah.
was a volunteer. And so
Right.
but I served under him. But when we lost, when he chose not to back the vice president who took over, or the president who took over for the Shah, uh,
Right.
the when we chose not to back his government, and we
Mhm.
pulled all of our intelligence people and all of our support out of that, that was the biggest mistake we made in the Middle East,
Mhm.
because they were a very modern country. I mean,
Yeah, they
I went to
were.
school with Iranians. Uh, I I I knew Iranian pilots. And
Mhm.
they were so pro America. It's actually, some of those guys were more pro America than some of these Democrats that are running for president right now.
Right.
And this was prior to the fall and the hostage takeover and all of that. And we wouldn't have had that situation if Jimmy Carter had continued to back the
Right.
democratically elected, or the government that was there. Well, you say democratically elected, maybe, but you've gone out of focus.
Yeah, I did. There
Oh,
we
there
go.
you are. Oh, I thought, are my eyes getting blurry? And I looked over. Oh no, I'm in.
Yeah, I looked at it, I'm like, what the? Also, the women at that time, especially in Iran and in Afghanistan, they weren't wearing the head
No, no,
scarves. No,
no.
and they had more freedom than they
Yeah.
do now.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was, they had, they were every bit as the modern, you know, typical woman from that
Right.
time period. This is in 1970s,
Right.
and they had, uh, and it was, Iran was a thriving country.
Right.
Now they're a third world. I don't understand. This is what I don't understand, is why do the Muslim extremists think that they have to go back to the 1400s,
Right.
the 1200s? Why do they go back to uh, why do they have to drag their country down to where it's like it was during the time of Muhammad? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. hmm It might not make sense to us because, well, we're not Muslim, and also they're following a brand of Islam that is very extreme. That
Yeah,
they're following it, to the T. You know, it's like some of the Christians are very extreme. I mean,
yeah,
the Baptists, they don't like dancing, and
yeah. Neither
and
do the Assemblies of God.
yeah, and the Mormons, they don't drink, and they avoid caffeine. Yeah,
That's what the rules say.
yeah,
I living in Grand Junction,
yeah,
back in the 70s, when we only had one TV station there, and
uh-huh,
the the two longest weeks on television was the weeks for the when the Mormon had their convention, because that was the only thing on TV in Grand Junction. We're 30 miles from the border,
right,
and it was half Mormon there at the time.
yep,
And so
mhm,
that's the only thing that was on. That's the only thing that was on was the Mormon convention. It's like, oh
right,
my God, you know, that's rough on a young man, and the only thing he's got is one TV station.
yeah,
This was before cable, folks. They didn't
yeah,
it hadn't been invented yet.
yeah. And then the Mormons who do drink and smoke and drink coffee, what do we call them? We call them Jack Mormons.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And the thing is, yeah, there's I'm not gonna go there because I've actually got a sister and a niece that are well, I got a sister who's Mormon, and it's like,
yeah.
I think she decided to become Mormon because she's had so many husbands. She just decided that way she can class 7 wives. Yeah, no, yeah, but yeah, you're right. And Carlos says people ruin religion, and I agree. Uh, I was talking to somebody. I was actually Bob Casey. We were talking about. I said I'm not the most religious man, but I've got a very strong faith, and that's the difference. Faith and religion don't always go hand in hand. Seven
Mhm.
headaches. Yeah, seven
Yeah.
wives, seven headaches. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was. But, anyways, squirrel.
Yep. Well, and we could talk about the Reformation and the Renaissance, and that could be a whole nother show. We could talk about that and the split from the Catholic Church and that formed the Anglican Church, and then we had the Presbyterians
Right.
and the Calvinists,
Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
it's like Martin Luther. He never intended to leave the Catholic Church. He wanted a reform inside the church,
right.
not outside of it. But then he got excommunicated, in 97 uh treaties or what they call them that he nailed to the door of the it's
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
I think it's
the
like Pope
treaties
Pius
of
the sixth.
Worms,
Yeah. He was selling, he was trying to I think when he was working on uh, St. Peter's Cathedral there, and he needed money for it, so he started selling blessings. You know, yeah, for so much money. Yeah, that was the first televangelist right there.
there you go.
He says, "For so much money, I guarantee you a direct shot to heaven. You don't even have to go through purgatory first. You just go straight on.
Yeah,
Uh,
mhm,
do not pass go. Do not collect. Yeah, you go
mhm,
straight through."
yep,
And that's what Martin Luther was against, and
mhm,
uh, was that. So
mm,
he wanted the change, and you know,
Yeah, and then we could talk about the schism within the Catholic Church that split off to the Orthodox Church and
Orthodox
the
in the
Roman
yeah,
Catholic Church. And that
right.
could be a whole, we could do a whole
Oh yeah,
hour on that
yeah.
sometime down the future.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be something that would be interesting too, just simply because
yeah, when I was in high school, we were talking, we were,
Mitch
yeah,
brings up. I wonder just how much of organized religion is just the fake news of the time. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about the different fashion fa- factions of the Christian religion, like what we just discussed here: Luther, Calvin, and the Presbyterian.
There's the Huguenots. You got all the different. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
evangelicals or evangelical? I hear it both ways.
It's both ways. It depends on your part of the country because uh, I, I never heard it called an evangelical until just the last 10 years.
Right.
They were always evangelicals when I was growing up,
Uh, okay.
and that's what I'd always heard. So, but then probably some idiot news reporter that, you know, somebody like Shepard Smith or somebody that's just really right there knows everything that's going on. And he called it evangelical, and then it's picked up by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we could talk about Luther's split with the church and how you
Right.
know we could talk about the Catholic Church. You had uh, what's called penance, where uh, absolution. You could pay your you know
Yeah.
pay your way out of purgatory by
Right. Right.
making a donation to the church,
Now, just
and
while
that's
we're on that topic, do you know what purgatory is?
isn't it down in Southwest Colorado?
It is, but purgatory
It's like
is everybody thinks they're buying their way out of hell,
right.
but purgatory is not hell. It's the
Oh,
halfway point.
ah,
It's the
it's
way there was a I think it's Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty, in
oh,
which he's riding on the train, and they call that midtown. You either went up or you went down when you got off the train, you know.
ah,
And okay, purgatory is midtown. You
oh,
know,
okay,
it gives you the chance to, there. Only reason I know this is because I went through the
right,
adult catechism class with the Catholic Church, so I know that. Uh,
right,
Sarah Parks put up something. What if we live in heaven and all we have to do is live in heaven is treat the world and its people as if we were in heaven? Interesting thought, and it is an interesting thought.
uh,
Uh, that actually sounds like that actually uh, that's one of the teachings of the is it I always get these two mixed up. It's either Church of Christ or the Church of God. I can't remember which one is which, but that's
okay,
one of those two. They
mhm,
believe in that,
right.
uh, that way.
And then
So
we talk about the Church of Science, not Scientology, but
the Church of yeah, yeah, the Church of Science. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which
Chri-
my parents belong to
Is
that.
that are you talking about the Christian Scientist
Yeah.
Church of Christian Science? Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's another one that.
And there's even different divisions in that too, as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
that's the problem. Uh, and he back from the sky says that's good idea in theory, but then we have to figure out what heaven is to each person, and that's true. And this is the problem with religion. Uh, yeah, back from the sky, purgatory is the holding cell. Yeah,
Yeah.
the way it
Mhm.
was explained to me is okay, you guys have seen me. If anybody watched Oz by Drone, you saw me in my robe. I did the whole show in my robe. Okay. Uh, there was a long story about that. But, anyways, uh, the idea of purgatory is what it is the way the priest explained it to me. Yeah. Who can keep track of all the variations, Mitch? You're right. But it was like, we're all sitting here and I'm in just jogging pants and a robe or something. And all of a sudden, the president pulls up in a limousine right in front of your house. You're not
Uh,
dressed, you're not ready for it. Uh, yeah, Judge Lloyd. That's what they said. I look like a judge sitting there in my robes. Uh, but he pulls up and you're not ready to see him. So what purgatory is your time to kind of get your hair combed, put on a little bit
oh,
nicer clothes, get yourself cleaned up. Because as I said it, to him, I said, so the way it works is I've just done confession. I've just taken communion. I've drove out of the church parking lot, and some drunk comes swinging around the corner, hits me broadside, and I look over and go, "Oh shit!" That was my last word on earth.
mm-hmm.
Purgatory gives me a few minutes to wash out my mouth with soap, so when I go see my maker,
Yo,
a little nicer than I was the moment I died.
right. Mhm.
That's purgatory.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of okay. Uh, all right, let's look at your stats here. All right, and then they'll go down your stats and well, you know what? You just moved into the next bracket in
Yeah,
on your way up. It's
yeah, yeah,
like a round robin. It's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm sorry, but you lost a couple games.
yeah,
Now you're down to B division, and it's a little warmer down there, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
Well, it
what
really is
you get
it's the
things
holding cell, it's Midtown, at which point you have the opportunity, and this is the way it was taught to me. You have the opportunity because squirrel, how do we get on this topic? Yeah, anyways, let's
well,
we'll do another show about that.
uh, well, we went from the UN, then to spying, and then we got to Iran, and then we got into Islam, and then we started talking about all the different Christian religions, and boy, we could do a whole hour
Yeah,
on that.
we'll
So
probably do a whole month-long mini series on that.
there you go.
Squirrel.
Yeah, Art Carlson with Reverend Lloyd Mendenhall.
Well, yeah, that
Look,
and
are you a reverend or a pastor or are you all the above?
whatever anybody wants to call me, you
Okay.
know. I'm an ordained reverend,
Oh,
but in two different. I was I was originally ordained in the Assemblies of God, but then as I well, they got a thing against divorce. Go
oh,
figure, you know.
yeah.
So I got my ordination through actually a couple of different churches, and I'm still a licensed ordained minister, and uh, I'm not your typical pastor. You know, it's something I still, I'm still proud of. I just don't use it as much anymore. Most of my uh, and I was more of I really didn't like preaching. You know,
Right.
especially with the Assembly of God, you got to get up and pound the Bible and all that stuff. That was not me. I was more about
Praise
teaching.
your soul.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get up there and say everybody's gonna burn in hell.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna sit there and say if you don't wear your makeup a certain way or not wear it. I just couldn't do that, and that was part of the problem. And there was a lot of different uh, churches, but I'm non-denominational.
Right.
Uh,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, pastor, reverend. Uh, actually, it's the reverend doctor if you want the full title, but that's because I do have a doctorate in theology. So, uh, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
I'm a YouTube guy.
Yeah.
I'm a vlogger. I'm not a droner.
Well, we managed to do just a little over an hour, and I just want to thank all you guys who showed up today. Let's see how well we did. How many people? 7 people watching. That's not too bad. And you know what? We're up to 13 subscribers. So we're inching along, we're getting there, and and you guys in the chat go tell a couple friends.
I'm
And
actually
friends
there's somebody here. I want to actually go look at their channel because I don't know that I have them, and it's quite interesting. Let's see what. Well, they don't have content, but Sarah Parks, there you've put forward some very interesting thoughts. So uh, that's cool. So uh, I don't know who she is or where she came from, but I'm glad that she did put some. There were some interesting thoughts. It's nothing that you can just discount out of. Uh, so uh, she's been putting up some good stuff. She obviously somebody who has spent a lot of time learning, and
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm. All right. So I want to thank you all in the chat and all you people who've been watching this last hour. We're going to continue to grow this channel, and maybe we might be something like Rush Limbaugh of the YouTube. Who knows?
You
So
never know. It could happen.
doing this show since 2011. It started off as an internet radio show, and I went on hiatus for a few years from 13 on till about 17, and decided, hey, let's bring it to social media. So I did it on Facebook for a while, and then I decided, YouTube might be a better venue for
Yeah.
this. Then I get brand it and let it grow out of that. And I'm not trying to go to some of these places to try to get, uh, you know, notice. Hey,
Right. Yeah.
'cause that could backfire on you. You might piss off some snowflakes that might be in there. Oh, I'm not gonna, blah blah blah. And it's like, hey,
Right. Yeah.
it's
And
not your
there's
cup
so
of
much of that
tea.
in YouTube.
We're plugging away, and we'll keep on going. And I want to thank all you guys for coming in. Uh, we'll see you all next week, and God bless you. Have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Y'all be nice. Catch you later.